The 2017 NFL regular season is in the books, and it's time to look forward to the NFL playoffs. Now, for those of you that don't know what this is my NFL playoff power rankings. It's where I rank the teams from 1 to 12, 1 being the highest that I think has the best chance of winning Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota this upcoming February. And at number 12, it's who I think has the least amount of chance of winning the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go from 1 to 12. 12 teams have a chance of winning the Super Bowl this year, but only one team can win. I'm going to start off from 1 and go all the way down to 12. So number 1 is who I think has the best chance of winning Super Bowl 52, and that is the New England Patriots. And why would they not be number 1 in 100%, maybe 98%, 99% of our NFL playoff power rankings? Why wouldn't they be? Because they've got Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not one of the best coaches in NFL history. The Patriots continue to win consistently, year after year after year. I'd be astonished if they did not make the Super Bowl this year because they've got home field throughout the playoffs. The Patriots do their job. The Patriots just continue to be consistent year in, year out, and I think it's going to continue. I expect them to cruise all the way to Minnesota. At number 2, I think this is the only team that can beat the New England Patriots. In fact, I think they're the only team that can match up to New England physically. This may surprise some people, but the New Orleans Saints. And I know some people could argue maybe the Panthers can beat the Patriots, maybe the Chiefs can beat the Patriots again, because both those two teams beat the Patriots in the regular season. But you got to really be aware that it's a much different Panthers team than it was back in Week 4. Much different Chiefs team now than it was back on opening night. And different Patriots team like it was back in Week 1. I think the Patriots, when they're at their best, they're probably one of the most unbeatable sports franchises in the history of all sports. And when that calendar turns January, the Patriots just seem to turn it on. And I think the Saints are the only team that can beat the Patriots, at least match up to them physically, because I think the Saints have that running game led by Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Ever since trading Adrian Peterson, Mark Ingram is leading the National Football League in rushing yards. And Alvin Kamara, the rookie sensation, he got overthrown the first couple of weeks by Kareem Hunt. But ever since Week 6, when they traded Adrian Peterson, the Saints had the most lethal running game in the National Football League. And I think those two running backs, they could single-handedly just wear out that New England defense. And at number 3, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you could really argue that maybe the Steelers could beat the Patriots. But the reason why I think they can't beat the Patriots, yes, Le'Veon Bell did run the football quite well against New England. Yes, Pittsburgh should have probably been able to beat New England in the regular season. I mean, the Patriots were trailing by 9 points in the fourth quarter. But the Steelers had the necessities to win that game. But they just couldn't pull it out, and the Patriots, they continued to grind it out and win that game. But if the Patriots and the Steelers are to match up, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but if they are able to match up against each other, the Patriots will be in Foxborough this time around, not in Heinz Field. And I think Foxborough is the toughest place to play anywhere in the National Football League, especially in January. And I think the Steelers, they could put up a good fight. Maybe they could challenge them a bit, but Antonio Brown may not be 100%. In fact, I think Pittsburgh, they might have a tough time beating someone like Jacksonville, although Jacksonville can't handle the cold weather, which we're going to talk about later on. But Steelers at number 3, I think they're the only team that could really challenge the Patriots in the AFC, despite Kansas City beating them earlier in the season. Now, number 4 are the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings, led by Case Keenum, ever since Week 2, I just think that the Vikings, they've been one of the best teams in the league, one of the most consistent teams in the league. You don't see them making a lot of mistakes. But the problem going with Minnesota is their defense is great. They've got great receivers in Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. They could stretch the field out for corners. But the thing that I don't like with the Vikings at this point is the fact that they are the host team this year. And the host team has never and a host team has never made the Super Bowl in the year that their city is hosting the big game. That's the thing I don't like about the Vikings. Could it be an NFL conspiracy that they don't want the Vikings in the Super Bowl because they could generate a much larger fan base than the opponent? That could be for some of those conspiracy theorists out there that believe that. Anything's really possible. You don't really know where you really are. We're not NFL executives. We're all on the internet for a reason. The thing I don't like about the Vikings, though, is that sole purpose of them not of being the host city this year, because the host city has never made it to the Super Bowl. In fact, I believe a host city has not made it past the divisional round, and the Vikings had that first round bye. So we'll see what happens when we see them take the field in the playoffs. At number 5, I have the Carolina Panthers, and you could argue as well. Maybe they could be a team that can challenge New England if they were to make it to Minnesota. But the thing I don't like about Carolina is their defense is too inconsistent. I've seen Panthers fans all over Twitter throughout the season saying their defense is overrated, and they're beginning to accept that. In fact, there were some people that wanted to throw Mike Shula under the bus for not calling the best offensive plays early in the season. But as far as New Orleans and Carolina goes, we're going to see them play in the wild card matchup. In fact, between New Orleans and Carolina, I think whoever wins that wild card matchup between those two teams, I believe will be representing the NFC in Minnesota for Super Bowl 52. That's just how I see these two teams. Christian McCaffrey, probably one of the best in the game, probably the best receiving back in the playoffs, only behind Alvin Kamara, maybe Devontae Freeman for the Falcons. But I think Christian McCaffrey has had a pretty solid rookie year. In fact, I will say that again. I believe that the winner between the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers this weekend in the wild card game, I think will be representing the NFC Conference in Minnesota for Super Bowl 52. Now, number 6, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams, I somewhat get 2016 vibes out of this 2017 Rams team. In fact, they were last in points per game last year, and this year they're number 1. Who was number 1 in points per game last year? The Atlanta Falcons, and they made the Super Bowl. But the problem I have with the Rams is, have we really seen enough out of the Rams? I know they beat the Eagles. They beat playoff teams like the Eagles. They ended up beating the Saints. But can the Rams win on a consistent basis? And they're playing the Falcons in the wild card matchup, which I feel like the Falcons, they could ride off some momentum after a big Week 17 win against Carolina, which we're going to get to in a second. But number 7, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and some people are thinking, I've seen a lot of people have Jacksonville as their Super Bowl winning pick, but I think that's going to be incorrect, because who have the Jaguars really beaten? Out of playoff caliber teams, who have they really beaten this year? I know they beat Pittsburgh, but that was earlier in the season, and Pittsburgh now is a much better team than what they were that day against Jacksonville. If you redo the matchup between the Steelers and Jaguars on that particular day, I think the Steelers would win. If you redid it 10 times, I believe the Steelers would win 9 of them by at least double digits. And I think with Jacksonville having potentially going on the road in Heinz Field to play the Steelers in January on what's going to be a cold one, I don't really like Jacksonville's chances to make it out of the divisional round. So that's why Jacksonville's at number 7. They have the defense, but Blake Bortles historically isn't the best quarterback on the road. In fact, the last two road games, the Jaguars with Blake Bortles at quarterback hasn't been that successful. At number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons, they're coming off the 28-3 blown lead in Super Bowl 51. Now, the reason why the Falcons are number 8, maybe some could want them higher. I've seen some people say that maybe the Falcons could end up making it to the NFC Championship game, but they play the Rams. But their defense, I think their difference would be how that defense plays, because their defense got better and better each week up until that Super Bowl, each and every time they played. Now, the Falcons are coming off what I believe is the best win of the 2017 season for them, a 22-10 victory over the Panthers. I think that's probably their best win of the season. It was a game they knew they had to win to get the playoffs. I think they could ride that momentum to maybe pulling off the ups against the Rams. But we'll see what happens. And number 9, I had the Kansas City Chiefs. The reason why I have the Chiefs at number 9 is because, yes, I know they start the year 5-0, but after they went 5-0, they played the Steelers. They lost the Steelers. Then they lost teams like the Cowboys. Then they lost all these different games after that. In fact, I believe they lost 5 out of their next 6. They lost teams like the Jets. And ever since week 1 against the Patriots, I think the Chiefs haven't really necessarily looked the same. Because I think if the Chiefs and the Patriots played again, we could possibly see that in the divisional round. I think the Patriots could probably beat the Chiefs right now by at least 14 points. The reason why I say that is because the Chiefs secondary has just been broken this year. Ever since Eric Berry went down, the Chiefs secondary just hasn't been at its best. It's not what people expected it to be. I think it's going to cost the Chiefs down the road is not only Alex Smith, but probably the defense as well. In fact, I think if the Titans can really get to that secondary early on in Kansas City, I think it's going to be a long afternoon for the Chiefs. And number 10 are the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know people are going to, I think this is where some of the controversy is going to be in my playoff rankings. The Eagles at number 10 out of 12. The third least likely team, in my opinion, to win the Super Bowl. But it's just this simple. Look at what happened with the Packers losing Aaron Rodgers. What happened with the Texans losing Deshaun Watson? Those two teams, they had a difficult time winning games. And ever since Carson Wentz went down, the Eagles have had a difficult time winning games. They almost lost to the Giants. They struggled against Oakland on Christmas night. And they struggled today against the Cowboys, even though they played their starters. I mean, they played their backups for most of the game. But still, to get shut out in a game before the playoffs, I know they're having the bye week, but the Philadelphia Eagles look like the most beatable number 1 seed in at least NFL playoff history. At least, in my opinion, they're the most beatable number 1 seed ever since I started watching football. Because they have struggled to win games without Carson Wentz. And whoever they're going to play in the divisional round, I think they're going to get to Nick Foles pretty well. Especially if we see someone like the Falcons or if we see the Panthers or the Saints. I could see whoever plays the Eagles, I could see that defense getting to Nick Foles early on. So I think the Eagles' offensive line will be tested in the divisional round. I also think the defense will be tested. I'm saying the Eagles are the 10th in my playoff rankings. Number 11 are the Tennessee Titans. And the Titans made the playoffs. They're one of the teams last year that I thought they could sneak their way into the playoffs the next year. And that's what they've done. Now the Titans, the thing I don't like about the Titans is Marcus Mariota's inconsistencies. Marcus Mariota just seems to turn the ball over consistently on a consistent basis. They did win today against the Jaguars to get into the playoffs. But I think the Titans, they got a challenge going on the road in Arrowhead to Kansas City in one of the loudest, if not the most loudest stadium in the NFL. But the thing that's going right for the Chiefs, it is an afternoon game, not a primetime game. If it was a primetime game, I could say the Chiefs could run away with this one. But I think with the cold weather in Kansas City, could the Titans have a tough time with this matchup? I'll tell you about it later this week. Number 12 of the Buffalo Bills. Now the Bills have made the playoffs for the first time in this century. That's a huge accomplishment for the Bills. But the thing that's not going well for the Bills is their heart and soul of the team, LaShawn McCoy. He is most likely not going to play in the wildcard matchup against Jacksonville. And I think that's what's going to cost the Bills. I think the Jaguars, I think they'll probably beat the Bills. A little bit of a spoiler alert for my wildcard predictions later this week. But I think the Bills, they have the least probability of winning Super Bowl 52 because the heart and soul of their team, LaShawn McCoy, is most likely going to be out. I believe it's an ankle injury. He left the game early in Week 17 against the Dolphins. But those are my playoff power rankings. Comment your playoff power rankings down below. And also comment who you think is going to be representing the AFC and NFC in Minnesota for Super Bowl 52. like and share the channel, share it with your friends and family. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.